other solution. I knew I needed help when I just couldn't function. Hadn't gone to work in a week. I couldn't think, I couldn't eat. Nothing was, nothing was going well for me at that time. So I went to my mother, and luckily my brother had gone to rehab the year before. He kind of opened that door for me. And that's how I learned about rehab. So I went to my mother. My mother came over to my apartment and said, "Your father and I heard you've been using drugs." And I said, "Not me. I don't know what you're talking about." And so, of course, that night I stayed up using, and that morning I woke up and went over to my mom's house and crawled in her bed and said, "I need help." So they said, "Okay, let's go to rehab. Let's figure this out." So I did. I went to a rehab in Pennsylvania called Chit Chat. Loved it. Loved it. Met some great people. But that was my first introduction to the world of recovery. I didn't know anybody who was really sober. I had no friends, just my brother, but he lived in Texas, so I didn't really know recovery. And so I went to this rehab. I stayed 21 days, got out right before Thanksgiving, had to leave because it was Thanksgiving, and had to be home with the kids for Thanksgiving and the family, which doesn't make any sense now because how many had I messed up prior to going to rehab. But I went to rehab and I didn't stay sober. I came home. I never followed through with treatment. I went to one meeting and it freaked me out. And I was sober about 3 weeks and used again. And at the time I was in a relationship with a man who had moved out of Hornell. He had moved to another state and said, so I called him up and I said, I don't know what to do. And he was having a hard time with the whole "my girlfriend went to rehab" thing, and he didn't know the extent of my problem, of course, because I lied and hid things and made it everybody else's fault. So I wanted to go back to rehab, and the rehab said no, and she said, "If you have some place to go, why don't you go?" And so I moved to this other state with the man that I was seeing at the time. And I thought that was going to fix me. I thought it was going to change, and it didn't. And I sent my kids to live with their father at that time. And he said, "No problem, I'll keep them. They can move with you if you're going to stay there. When they're out of school, it'll be okay. I understand." And so I did that. I moved, I got a job, I lived with this man who was a great guy. He's a really great guy, and loved my kids. We came to the point where we were going to put a deposit down on an apartment big enough for all of us and move them, and I called my ex-husband, and he said, "My kids aren't going anywhere." And so for me, that was it. I knew I couldn't go back there because I was going to get crazy again. Yet he's telling me that my kids couldn't move with me, which was my life. And I felt defeated. I really felt defeated. So I continued to use, living in another state, going home to see my kids every weekend, and using while I'm there. It became this crazy pattern. And I ended up using for about 9 or 10 more months, or about a year probably. I ended up using, and I got arrested. And it was at that time that I knew, this was big. I got arrested. There was, drugs involved. I had lied to the police. I signed a false statement, and that's what they got me for. And so I, again, went to my mom, and she said to me, "I hope you never have to watch your child die in front of your eyes." And that was huge. That was one of those moments, A, I'll never forget, and B, I knew it was time. So I went off to another rehab, and this was in another state again, and I decided to do it. I decided that something had to change, that I had become a person that I didn't recognize. And I was very sick and didn't really know how I got there. Didn't get it. It took a long time to realize that alcohol and drugs were my problem. And it wasn't, you know, the person I was married to, the person I was with, my kids, my family, my upbringing, my loneliness, it took me a long time to realize that it was just point blank drugs and alcohol. That was my problem. So I went to a rehab, and I went to an outpatient program, and I stayed in treatment outpatient for a year and did whatever they told me to do. Didn't always do it with a smile, you know, some of it was kicking and screaming, but I knew I needed to do something different, and I was so tired of hurting those that I loved, and I was not the mom I was meant to be. I wanted to be a better mom and a better person. I didn't know what that was going to look like, but that's exactly what I wanted. "14 years ago today was the day that my life changed. It was the day that I put down the drugs and alcohol, and I've been in recovery for 14 years now. What a blessing. The best part of recovery for me has been, it's been an amazing journey. It's been amazing for me. The best part is that I was taught to reach outside my comfort zone, to envision a life that I wanted to live and be able to go towards it. I was taught to go to any lengths in order to achieve what I have today. There's so many best parts. I went back to college after I was 3 years sober, and you know, I didn't think I could graduate. You know, I could barely get out of high school, and I was able to go to school and learn how to help other people, which has really been my mission here, is to take all of the pain and suffering that I went through with addiction and use it to help other people. When I think of all of the things that my recovery has helped me accomplish, it's amazing to me, the life that recovery has given me. I get to help other people, which I do on a daily basis. I was able to fight my ex-husband in court and get custody of my children back and raise them to be healthy, happy, amazing people. I went to college, a woman who didn't think she could get out of high school without, cheating. I went to college and I finished a 5-year degree in 4 years. I would get a goal and I've learned how to go towards it. I don't run away from my past anymore. I don't run, I don't hide. I'm running towards something, and that for me is recovery. My message to anybody who suffers from addiction or has somebody who's suffering from addiction is that it can get better, and that there's hope, and there's people like myself who are willing to reach out and to do whatever it takes with a person to help them get well, and that recovery is possible. And the longer that I stay in recovery, just really the better my life gets. If I had, in early recovery, drawn a picture of what my life was going to look like at 14 years, I'd have cheated myself. I would have never been able to envision the life that I have been able to develop through living, different principles and just, working this program of recovery that I have.